My name's Adam Manaka and I'm the Financial Controller for Hi-Tech Oils. With our national capacity, we can now service Australian companies nationwide. Of late, we have now expanded into the New Zealand market. Here at Hi-Tech Oils, we receive premium base oils and premium additive packs. Together, with our highly trained staff, we manufacture over 500 premium quality products. Hi-Tech Oils is Australian made and Australian owned.
On today's show, we return to the Bend Motorsport Park in South Australia for our continuing opening round coverage of the Shannons Nationals, featuring the Radical Australia Cup. Then we head to Mount Panorama Bathurst as the production sports cars take on the mountain as part of the Hi-Tech Oils Bathurst 6 Hour. And later in the show, the FIA World Endurance Championship is back on Speedweek, and we head over to Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium for the opening round of the 2018-19 Super Season, the 6 Hours of Spa. This is Speedweek.
"100 kilometres southeast of Adelaide is Tailem Bend, at a turning point in the mighty Murray River. It's where the Peregrine Group and the Shaheen family are well advanced on making a world-class motorsport complex. The dream is coming to life, and it is seriously impressive.
Thank you very much, Greg, Rust, and a very big welcome to yourself, Greg, here to the Bend Motorsport Park. Tony Shebeki, you only arrived overnight here, so you've only seen the track for the first time on the way in here this morning.
It is amazing, Darren. Good morning to you. Good morning, Rusty. Good morning, everyone right around Australia and around the world watching the first round of the Shannons Nationals here, coming to you live from Tailem Bend. What an amazing track it is. And you're right, Darren, you're sort of driving and you're thinking, hang on, it's nowhere to be seen, it's nowhere to be seen. And then all of a sudden you take a left-hand turn through a couple of gates and there's this massive grandstand with a hotel attached to it. It's really like something that comes out of America.
Well, we're going to open things up with the Radicals. They're forming themselves up on the grid as we speak. Right now, it's James Winslow that's on pole position with Kim Burke right alongside Pete Patton, who had so many victories last year. He's off 3. Chris Sereni there in 4th. Then it's Simon Haggerty to Chris Medlin, Tony Haggerty. Then we go to Brett Medlin, Rowan Ross, Michael Whiting. And it's Brad Nielsen, Kenny, Sue Hughes rounds out the field, and we are underway with a rolling start for the first race of the day. Kim Burke is looking wide, just a slight rise in the track there, then a little dip down to turn 1, just to make sure you're concentrating on that 1 kilometre long front straight. And it's Pete Patton that dips in right in front of James Winslow there, the Pom, the Englishman driving the Shaheen Radical. We just jump in behind there and looking back down through the field there. There's Claire pushing through. Peter Clare coming from the rear of the grid there as well. So he's trying to get his way up there. But Pete Patton, who has had the game on a string, leads at the moment. But I tell you what, if I was leading a race and James Winslow was under my rear wing like he is right now, I'd be very, very concerned. They come around that awesome bit of turn 6, which we watched all throughout yesterday. It was very, very interesting. As the wind picked up, it really lifted up on the back there. Just some fluids coming out of the back of the Winslow car there. So we'll keep an eye on that. And looks for the dive down the inside. In fact, Patton looked as though he's come to a halt almost there. He just about went backwards. So yes, he has. He's had an issue, and that fluid continues to pour out of the back of the Winslow car.
James Winslow's car, of course, yesterday excluded from race 1. He had pole position, was doing well, but it would seem that due to the fact that he didn't have a scheduled pit stop during the race, his car was excluded. So at the back of the field for him, what an amazing career for James Winslow, British Formula 3 champion back in 2004, Formula V6 in Asia 2007, champion, Australian F3 champion back in 2008 and 12. He's raced on the Indy circuit up on the Gold Coast as a support to them with the F3s. Been around Australia for a while, just a really well-known name, not only in open wheelers, but now also in radicals over the last few years.
Strange you mentioned those years. I still think of him as a young man as we see Kim Burke on the number 68 down the inside of Patton. He has definitely got issues there. Pete Patton, they are streaming past him now. That is certainly not the way Pete Patton goes racing. He likes to keep people behind him. He's made a radical V. He's very much slowed down on the driver's left coming down past this mega pit complex here. The Shannons Insurance safety car poised at pit exit there, the headlights on, ready to go. Let's hope we don't see too much of it. But he's certainly gone right back down to the back of the field. That's a real shame for Pete Patton. He was beaten at Bathurst at the round earlier on this year, which was part of the 12-hour at Bathurst, and that was the first time he'd been beaten at Bathurst in 2 years at the opening round. So Kim Burke came away with that win, and Perini, who's currently in third, as we look back to see what happened going off the track there. That's Peter Clare off the start line there, who had a really good charge at the first few corners, and it's all come to naught.
Speaking of wins, Kim Burke came third in the Radical Cup back in 2015, has never had a win in a Radical race as yet.
Well, yeah, except for Bathurst. So you tick that one off. Last year came fourth in the championship. Of course, Pete Patton, he took out the title with Ollie Smith, and that was a great run for Ollie Smith. He's been in every RAC Cup since it began. And it was really cool to see him get the second place in the championship last year. He didn't actually take a race win, but consistent podiums right throughout the year. And Ollie's quite the stalwart of radical racing. You say quite the stalwart, and then hasn't entered here this weekend. So that's a shame. Obviously, tick the boxes at Bathurst, and as holding off just for the next round, which I think they join us pretty much each and every round now at Sandown for the next one through. Kim Burke cemented himself into position 2, just out over a second lead there now to Perini, and we see the number 47 Haggerty car, which will be Simon, getting through there as well. So sitting there in 4th place, Medland, then Tony Haggerty, Rowan Ross. Now this is the brand new car, the number 88 car for Rowan. He's done a wheel bearing initially early on this weekend, but continue on very, very nicely indeed. Here we go back to the rolling start. Winslow looking in the mirrors there. That's very, very interesting. That white helmet on the black livery there. He's checking out where Pete Patton's coming from. So he was well aware that Kim Burke was off to his right, but he was more concerned about the fast charging number 31 there. So that is Michael Whiting, who had a great result yesterday. In fact, Michael got up into 4th place. The number 33 now stranded out trackside. So his race will come to a halt momentarily. I would suggest that we may even get a safety car, being that the car was stopped on the racing surface, unless we can get some local yellows and get our fantastic CAMS volunteer officials out trackside. Some 200 of them here, Tony, this weekend. Gee, they fronted up to some pretty wild weather locally here at Taylor Bend over the last few days. So safety car out now, as we see the 33 car here as well. This is Michael Whiting, and this is why we've got the Cars and Coffee Melbourne BMW safety car out on the track. And just looking at the crew, the way they're looking at that part of the car there as well. So Pete Patton with an issue, and the way Pete Patton slowed and then got going again and then ultimately slowed was obvious. He was stuck in a gear, obviously a 5th gear or something like that, and just trying to get the car to the pits would have been absolutely painful. Back here with the restart for the Radicals there, and that was very interesting watching Chris Perini from 3rd place there as he came on the straight, was just weaving, trying to get a bit more heat into the tyres as the BMW Melbourne Cars and Coffee car went back into the lane, and we're racing again. So it's Yasser Shahin leading away again, and he has got a good bit of gap immediately off that restart over Kim Burke and Chris Perini, Tony Haggerty, Chris Medlin and Simon Haggerty. So there we have the father and son. Dad's out in front at the moment in position 4, son down in 6. We've got another father and son team there as well with Brad and Mitchell Nielsen. Brad at the wheel now, that's Dad. He's leading the charge early on in today's race. Back to Chris Medlin. Sue Hughes, who came off the back of the grid, has made her way up to 9th. and she's in the oldest style of SR3 out there this weekend, and you can tell there's a couple of differences with them. One's got like a bulging type of balloon or bubble type front, and the other one's got more of that sort of formula car type nose cone, a pointed type nose cone. There's not a lot of the older bubble type ones running in the RAC. We do have some of them running in the New South Wales Super Sport series as part of the state round there, but the Radical Australia Cup running in conjunction with the Shannons Nationals. We have most of the newer SR3Xs, or now the new RSX, which is running. And of course, there is also available the SR8, but they're not available for competition in the Radical Australia Cup.
Pretty much throughout England and Europe.
Absolutely, and North America. And one of the prizes for winning the RAC is you get to go to the Radical Masters. And that's been held at Spa, it's been held at Monza, and they're talking about actually holding it at the flat track at Indianapolis, not this year, next year. Okay, compulsory pit stops starting to unfold now. Got the 68 of Kim Burke and the 81 of Chris Perini in the lane now. So these two cars came out as second and third in the race. They're obviously trying to get a bit of a break so that they can get some clear air, and they are making their way into the lane. They'll stop. It's for a designated and set amount of time. So there's no need to hurry. There's no madness or having to tear around and do things. So all we really do is, as we can see there, the crew members checking tyre pressures, and that's really just to adjust back to the base setting. We've still got more than half the race to go. So the tyres won't be, I would suggest, gone over operating temps, because we've only had one essentially competition lap since the extended safety car phase, but we're back into the race proper now. Yasser Shaheen still leads now. Simon Haggerty into P2 as a result of the Burke and the Perini car in the lane. Chris Medlin and Tony Haggerty also sitting there in the 4. Kim Burke in 5th, who's actually in the lane and will drop down with Chris Perini at the moment that we're seeing there in 5 and 6. So Bill Medlin and Sue Hughes will be in there as well. Look how relaxed it is in there. Kim Burke's just taking the lid off a drink, and now he's trying to work out how to get in there. It's probably best to have a straw, wouldn't you think?
I reckon it might be. You're right. There's the window opening basically on the lap that these guys came in, so not wasting any time, just taking the opportunity straight from the top.
Gee, do you think Kim Burke's a bit of a Mark Webber fan, looking at that helmet design?
Yes.
Webber-esque, isn't it? Very similar there. I mean, who isn't a fan of Webber?
Exactly right.
Even if when he was driving, you sort of thought, geez, he's a very intense young man. These days, what a top bloke.
He had to be intense to survive that, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. He was paving the way for decades of Aussies that hadn't made it into Formula One, and he felt the weight of that. But now, he's just this fantastic, relaxed motorsport commentator. We should probably be looking over our shoulders at him, Butcher Bex. Maybe he's going to knock on the door of the commentary booth here.
He's doing well overseas, I'm sure, is our man Mark Webber, Sam Haggerty, Tony Haggerty, all coming in. Chris Medlin also coming into the lane as well. And as we see these guys come in, our other two guys have gone out, Perini and Burke.
Bit of traffic down there at turn 1.
Good news for Chris Perini, he's actually picked up a spot coming out of pit lane as well.
Just speared off to the driver's left there. The white car just speared off to the grass there. Wasn't sure who that was. Tony Haggerty into the lane. As we've seen Perini and Burke rejoin the field. Maybe there is still a little bit of moisture out on the track just around that, around turn 3 where that car was, and just jagged left.
Just didn't turn right enough.
It's disappeared off the screen. So certainly wasn't part of the race plan. Looking across the engine cover there of the Haggerty car, the RSX. And we're back out on track now, and we're looking straight at Brett Medlin and Sue Hughes. And Sue's currently sitting in P3, being that hasn't completed the compulsory pit stop. So we've got the first ones that came in, Perini and Burke. They've switched places, in fact. Perini's gone out and has put Burke behind him. Brad Nielsen out now, Mitchell Nielsen in the number 38. Rowan Ross, who was stranded in the 88, hasn't continued on after that safety car being returned to the pit lane. So I know Tony Ladoni will be working very, very hard to get the 88 back out there. And he's working very closely with Chris Papadopoulos and all the crew down there at Radical Australia, the Radical Australia Motorsports crew.
Yes, Shaheen be a little bit disappointed, I would have thought, with that safety car coming out. He had a nice little gap of around about 8 or 9 seconds before the safety car, of course, with the pit lane and the window opening. Effectively, the lap after the safety car went off, all that advantage washed off. So it'll be interesting to see when Yasser does come into the pit lane as to how he does come out, and whether he comes out in front of Kim Burke and Chris Perini, or whether he actually gets stuck behind him.
Well, the next thing will be is that James Winslow will probably jump into that car during that phase. So compulsory pit window is still open, and they've got plenty of time to still get in to carry that out. Passing manoeuvre down the inside there at 6, which I think after discussions right throughout the last 2 days, 6 and again over at 17, the second but last corner on the track are going to be the 2 big passing manoeuvres, and I think the designers of the track have actually recognise that, because they've built a 280-seat grandstand out over there, so they think that that's going to be a place for plenty of action come that August Supercar round. Medlin now in the pit lane. He, number 52, came out of 3rd place on the track, and just again making some mirror adjustment there, so nifty little carbon fibre piece of kit right up in behind the wheel arch exhausters.
Not hard to miss the Medlin car on a restart.
Yep. So there's our 68, watching Kim Burke, who came in 2nd place and has now still up into 9th place. Chris Perini has charged on through to 5th, hasn't he? Got rid of it. So it must have been something affecting Kim Burke, because he's not been able to get back through the traffic. In fact, he's dropped 4 spots in this compulsory pit stop window phase of the race.
Record lap 2 for Chris Perini since he's been out there, at 1:54.61 on his last lap. So doing a great job is Chris Perini as he starts to work his way through. He's just jumped up again as Peter Clare comes into the lane, so he is now in 3rd place. Chris Perini, and looking the goods at the moment, one might think.
More importantly, the gap to the leader is a 1:42 at the moment, so that's not going to be enough for Perini to get the lead once Yasser comes in for that pit stop, as we've got Greg Rust trolling away down there in pit lane, keeping up with all the info.
Boys, I wanted to extend the conversation that you started before in relation to Chris Papadopoulos. For those of you that know the executive at the Confederation of Australian Motorsport, you'll know Andrew Papadopoulos. This is his son, of course, who has worked over time at the Renault and Lotus Formula One teams, but you've got an important role with Radical Australia, don't you?
Yeah, well, I'm the team manager for Radical Australia, and we look after all of the Radical Australia team cars, the works team there.
All right, and how are things going here so far with the compulsory pit stops on?
It's all going really well, yeah. So we've got a complicated system, much like the GT series, where we have an equalisation time applied to all the cars, as well as a compulsory pit stop time. But it's all going perfectly to plan, and the guys are out there having fun, so yeah, good.
Yeah, great to get any time with Chris Papadopoulos. He's got so much experience.
The busiest man around motor racing at the moment.
He is busy, isn't he? With his Carrera Cup duties and of course running of the RA Motorsports. Here's a spot change in the race as well, so it's starting to heat right back up there. That's
and
Chris
also
Medlin.
GT duties as well for Chris Papadopoulos as well.
It's always good to get any time with Chris Papadopoulos is time well spent. So much time in Formula One, and it's just a wealth of knowledge. And Chris is not an outspoken kind of guy. You've got to sort of drag that information out of him, but once he gets comfortable with the conversation,
spent a long time with Kimi Räikkönen, didn't he?
Yeah. Here's it on. Kim Burke is now getting back on with business there, goes through on Chris Medlin. So some multicoloured extravaganza liveries on these cars really stand out as Yasser Shaheen climbs out, and James Winslow, the Englishman, who now calls Australia home, and why wouldn't you? Equity One sponsored driver there. Chris Perini, this is going to be the next thing. This will see how the field's cleansed after this pit stop phase. Then it goes to Simon Haggerty, who's jumped Tony Haggerty during this phase as well. It's going to be Chris Medlin to Brett Medlin, Kim Burke, the Haggerty, and then it's going to be Mitch Nilsson. And then it is Greg Kenny out there as well, rounding out our top 10.
Doesn't look like the coal baron Tony Haggerty's going to get his wish and get past his son, Simon. Currently has the upper hand in that battle.
Certainly not. We've got a number of these mineral type barons floating around, with Liam Talbot about to go out. His father, Ken, was renowned for his ability to find things in the ground and dig it up. So it's what we do here in Australia, isn't it? We go car racing at the Bend and we dig stuff up Monday to Friday.
In Melbourne, we put stuff in the ground and hope it never gets dug up.
That's true too. So let's have a look here as James Winslow exits the lane, and we'll see where he gets around. Just trying to identify. That's the number 9 of Chris Medlin and the 68 of Kim Burke. So pops out in front of them. Greg Russ has got more stories from pit lane.
What were the words to James Winslow? He's kind of tapped you on the helmet and was asking a bit about the car, I guess, before he headed off there?
No, I just told him to look out for the wind. There's a couple of corners where the wind's quite strong running that way, so otherwise the car's fantastic. The track's in great nick. Great.
Proud moment for you and for the entire family. I spoke to Sam yesterday. I mean, without overstating it, I know you guys are perfectionists and there is still work to do, but it's come to life, mate. It's real. We're here. This is the first weekend.
Yeah, who would have thought 15 months ago there was nothing here? And what a nice thing for both Sam and I to do so well in our races.
As we see the car currently leading the race, Chris Perini, and it is very, very measured drive by him at the moment. We're not seeing anything silly. He's not even really going on to the ripple strips. Yesterday the ripple strips stayed well away with how wet things were, but today the cars can run out there. He's not even doing that, so he's not being aggressive. He's just stroking the car along to get himself to the line. And when you've got out over a 22-second lead to Simon Haggerty, you've pretty much got yourself set up for a 16-minute run to the end of this race.
For Perini, at the moment, it's a 28-second gap between himself and Winslow. Geez, I tell you what, Winslow just keeps turning up the wick on this record time for the Radicals here at the Bend, 1:52.51 now. So that's come down by, probably 0.4 of a second on his lap beforehand. And once again, back into purple sectors again through sector 1 and 2. So he is really going hard right at the back now of Sam Haggerty, and will overtake him, one would think, up the inside. He does. And into second place now, James Winslow. Sam Haggerty down to third.
Good job there, James Winslow. Picked the perfect spot to do it. And Simon didn't put up any resistance there. Left the door open for him, left him plenty of room. Here we go. Winslow setting it up. Haggerty just tipping the head to him, saying, there you go, pal. I can see you're coming, and away you go.
If you were dreaming of the ideal passing move and the easiest passing move, it's probably that one right there.
Another spot change there. The number 38 of Nielsen going through on the number 9 of Chris Medlin. Chris Medlin's, I would suggest, might have some concern with that car, because basically in the last 3 to 4 laps, all we've seen is cars sort of coming through on him and then just driving away like we're seeing Mitch Nielsen do at the moment.
Going around 57s as well would signify that he has got some sort of problem, 3 or 4 seconds slower than the rest of the field. But it's the race for 3rd and 4th that is getting really hot, and there they are on screen at the moment. Kim Burke right up the back of Simon Haggerty, and looks to launch up the inside, but Haggerty has that covered.
Certainly does. He doesn't want to give this position up now. This is the last spot on the podium. Kim Burke had a win at Bathurst and wants another win. Got 4th in last year's championship, accrued 217 points. And Simon Haggerty, he finished a fair bit further down in last year's title hunt. He's finished 16th on only 47 points. He only contested 1 round, so we'd like to drag a whole lot of points out of this round to make sure he can continue on in the 2018 season. Committed to this year, the full title hunt. A lot of these guys are high-powered business and during the week, so sometimes when a round runs and it conflicts with a business opportunity, they do take the weekend off, but they do then try and gather it all back up again and keep in the championship. So Simon committed to this year. Great shot of all of these cars coming down there as the time has clicked over, and we haven't seen the checkered flag because Chris Perini got over the line before the time ticked out. So next time round we'll see the checkered flag for Chris Perini, so he'll go around again. Here's this battle again. These guys didn't want to see another lap, well, particularly Simon Haggerty. Burke looks to the inside. Haggerty left the door open, obviously realised he had the match for it. As we see these cars will go around one more time.
What a great effort by James Winslow. Got that down to a 5.6 second margin between Perini and himself. So a good flying second half of the race for James Winslow. These guys have seen the checkered flag, haven't they, Darren?
Well, I saw the checkered flag being waved, but that's Chris Perini coming around, continuing on his last lap. And that's the Tony Haggerty car in front of him. Still got a healthy lead over Winslow, which is brought right back down to 5 seconds as we've been watching. And actually, there is James Winslow. Trying to make a little bit of sense about what's going on here, because there's James Winslow and race leader Perini. He looks to be covering him off there. So there goes the checkered flag, and he'll beat Perini to the line. And Winslow in second, and confirmed by the timing screen. So a little bit of confusion there with the timing screen and what was actually going on track, but we shall sort that out. Either way, James Winslow and Chris Perini did a fantastic job. There it is, the results. Chris Perini, our winner in his SR3 RSX, out in front of the field. James Winslow ultimately home 5.6 seconds behind. Kim Burke into P3. Simon Haggerty, Mitchell Nilsson with Brad there into 5. Chris Medlin, Tony Haggerty, Bill Medlin, Greg Kenny and Sue Hughes rounding out the 10.
You can stay up to date on all the very latest by going to the official Shannons Nationals website or on our social media channels. It's been a huge honour to be here for the first ever race meeting at Tailem Bend, and indeed the first broadcast of a race meeting here. On behalf of all of our hard-working team, it's bye for now.
Coming up after the break, we head to Mount Panorama Bathurst for the Production Sports Cars 1 Hour Enduro as part of the High Tech Oils Bathurst 6 Hour.